So we've been waiting for the perfect film adaptation of Wuthering Heights for a very long time, and the latest teaser trailer doesn't really fill us with much hope. But I have a solution, and it's one that's been staring us in the face all these years. I'm Dr. John. Welcome to Culture Decoded. In this week's episode, we're taking a quick look at the Wuthering Heights movie problem. We've had James Bond Heathcliff, we've had Voldemort Heathcliff, we've had Venom Heathcliff. And while some of these versions are favourites, Wuthering Heights suffers from an adaptation problem not seen in other adaptations such as Jane Eyre or Pride and Prejudice. The problem is that Heathcliff isn't Mr. Darcy, nor is he Rochester. And the main problem is that Wuthering Heights isn't really a love story. For those of you that know and love the video, especially those of you who have seen my explainer video, you'll know that one of the key problems with any film adaptation of Wuthering Heights is that the novel doesn't give us one important thing that a blockbuster movie needs more than a budget the size of the GDP of Norway. It doesn't give us any easily likable characters that we can root for. At some level, Heathcliff is a monster who imprisons people, ruins lives, and hugs corpses. And Cathy is either naive in marrying the local toff in the hopes that he can keep both she and Heathcliff in clean linen and freshly kneaded bread after their runs through the moors, or she's guilty of rejecting her soulmate in the interests of keeping the estate. What's more, the novel famously doesn't give us a reliable narrator. Nellie Dean is both voice of the novel, much of which she doesn't seem to understand, and one of its key characters. She's a kind of proto-gonzo journalist who both delivers and forms the story that she's part of. So can the novel be filmed at all? Well, what the novel can do that a movie cannot so easily is give us a profound understanding of the psychological reasons why the characters behave the way they do. Despite our narrator Nellie Dean's near blindness to the inner workings of other characters, Cathy and Heathcliff are somehow able to break through this Nellie boundary in the text and give us some idea of what's going on inside, which triggers in us a deep understanding of their motives and fears, something that's very difficult to achieve with just a headshot of Elvis Presley Heathcliff, long-haired and looking mournfully at Cathy. Perhaps this is why the movie tends to invent an erotic theme, one that absolutely is not there in the original novel and that absolutely is there in Emily's sister Charlotte's novel published just 36 days earlier. So in the new trailer, there's a link below if you haven't seen it, there's a lot of suggestive kneading of bread and touching of raw eggs for some reason. Perhaps there's going to be some kind of sexy food fight. Does Cathy ever knead bread in the novel? I don't remember that. If you do, let me know in the comments. But while there's a notable lack of sexual energy in the novel, what the novel does show is that Cathy and Heathcliff's love is both obsessive and regressive. Regressive in the sense that they tend to draw back into a childlike state of collapsed personal boundaries. Cathy famously says that Heathcliff is more myself than I, and she doesn't even recognize herself in the mirror. This is more like an infant state where the self and the other become one. And for his part, Heathcliff of the novel seems to be oblivious to sex altogether. He doesn't recognize Cathy's married sexuality, doesn't notice that she's pregnant. There's something very childlike about their obsessive fixation. This has been the subject of a lot of scholarly interest. But again, it's not the stuff of Hollywood blockbuster movies if all your protagonists want to do is run around on the moors like children. Or knead bread, apparently. They are adoptive brother and sister after all. Now, I'm not against movie adaptations of novels. The Muppet Christmas Carol is a masterpiece. For what it's worth, I also enjoy Kenneth Branagh's Much Ado About Nothing, and Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, of course. But the sexual tension of this new trailer, of this new adaptation, isn't the kind of story I signed up for with Wuthering Heights. It appears the sexual tension is there to give us a version of Cathy and Heathcliff we can become invested in and root for, while aligning it with the love story aesthetic of a Hollywood blockbuster Valentine's Day offering. But Wuthering Heights just isn't the kind of love story that Hollywood is trying to give us. But I think I have a solution. While most movie adaptations attempt to present both the literary plot and their characters in a faithful translation, there's also space for an adaptation that conveys the energy of the original without falling headlong into a simple translation of a complex novel. Michael Winterbottom's A Cock and Bull Story is the story of Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon attempting to film an adaptation of Lawrence Stern's complex comedic novel, The Life and Times of Tristram Shandy. Winterbottom's film manages to convey to us the essence and comedy of the novel while giving us the framing narrative of a company of actors negotiating with the text and the filming process, which allows the project to deftly tiptoe its way around the complexities of creating a full-blown adaptation of an impossible-to-film novel that may have lost some of its relevance. It brings the 9-volume 1759 novel right into a contemporary narrative, and it lays bare all of the complexities and frustrations of trying to do so for us to enjoy. Another film that allows for an audience to think about the obvious perils of adaptation is Armando Iannucci's The Personal History of David Copperfield, which is a film that cleverly reflects and reinvents the original story, as scenes of almost modernist surrealism and clever transitions from the imaginary to the real conjure a kind of theatrical wonder as David watches and comments on his own birth, and as characters ask to be added or deleted from the novel that the film is adapting. The techniques of both of these films, both the framing narrative and the self-conscious theatrical surrealism, allow the movie to dip into key moments of the novel with faithful realism without becoming enmeshed in the fraught complexities of adaptation. These films allow us to enjoy the best of the book in a visual format while also allowing the characters to question their motives or present us with moments of overt editorial choice. And they give us access to a kind of third world beyond the simple dichotomy of the book or the novel. They open up a space where we can feel satisfied that we're getting the story, we're getting the feel of the novel, but we're avoiding the obvious pitfalls and flaws of adaptation and translation. A Wuthering Heights movie like this could show us the actors struggling and coming to terms with the complexities of this novel. And it's been there all along. Wuthering Heights already has a framing narrative in Nellie Dean's imperfect and biased storytelling. I hope one day to watch a Wuthering Heights film and receive the story in the way that Lockwood receives it. I hope for a Wuthering Heights film that is not a love story, but a complex love-revenge tragedy. But I fear that Valentine's Day next year, when the new film is released, won't be that day. If this is your thing, give me a like. Click subscribe so you get next week's episode of Culture Decoded. I'll see you soon.